Well, hello, electrifiers. Right. We have a question for you, or I have a question for you. How many companies do you think there are in China building electric cars? This is also a question for the two of you.
Okay.
Because what I'll do is I'll reveal the answer right at the end of the video, a little tease for you. So if you want to have a go, pop it in the comments now.
Do you know the answer to this one?
I don't know the answer.
Do you
Is it
not?
in the script?
No.
I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't know the answer to this.
I know the answer.
Yeah.
So we're
Interesting
not
one.
you get as well. So if that hasn't given you enough of a clue, today we're going to chat about cars and companies that you might not have heard of. Because there are loads of them out there that are really going after a share of the global sales of electric cars. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of the legacy players out there need to be very, very afraid.
But before we get into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because if you're into electric cars, not this kitchen table, but this channel is the place to be.
So new rounds, and we'll reveal those numbers on the number of Chinese electric startups a little later. So put your thinking hats on. And as Nick said, let us know in the comments below. But it's changed so much, hasn't it? So if you look at Kia and Hyundai, they're mainstream now, aren't they? I mean, brilliant, amazing cars that they are knocking out of the park with, but they're not kind of the startups they once were in the industry. Same, I wonder, with Polestar. You know, they feel a bit more like a,
They feel a bit more established, don't they?
They're worth a mention anyway.
But I am guessing that some of the cars that we're going to talk about today may be new to some of you, so it should be interesting.
But the thing is that doesn't stop you from wanting to buy them. Actually, 80% of people that visited electrifying.com tell us that they don't care where in the world their car has been manufactured. This is crazy, right? Only 1 in 5 say that they are likely to buy a car that's been made in the UK. 1 in 5.
It used to be higher than that, didn't
That's
it? It
low.
must have been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the comparison is, but I'm sure that whole kind of Buy British campaign, I mean, we don't necessarily build that many cars anymore, so that's also part of the problem. But, you know, I do think that whole brand loyalty with electric has been really thrown up into the air.
But I think it's fair to say that some of the brands we're going to be talking about, some are better than others.
Yes.
Some divide opinion, particularly amongst us journalists, because that's what we are. Who's kicking off?
I think, is it worth kicking off with a chat about why, particularly with electric cars, it's really opened the doors for lots of new players to come in? Because I think it's all down to the simplicity of electric cars, because they're basically just a battery and a couple of motors, aren't they? I mean,
that's all.
If you're out there building cars, you might not agree with that. What I'm trying to get to is that they just are not as complex as their internal combustion engine counterparts. You've got no pistons, you've got no valves, you've got no camshafts.
I didn't know we would be talking about camshafts today, did you?
Transmission system. What it means is that there is that simplicity there about building them, which has just opened up the doors to a lot more people to give it a go.
I mean, well, it's not completely true.
Oh.
Okay. So you've got researchers at the Boston Consulting Group that have basically found that manufacturing a complete electric vehicle, so beyond just the powertrain, is only slightly less labour than a gasoline-powered car. Slightly.
I guess it's not perhaps necessarily about the amount of labour that goes into all the different components. It's about the fact that there just aren't as many. So there are thousands and thousands of mechanical parts in a petrol and diesel car and a handful in electric.
Yeah. But I think what it does mean is that you can buy the battery from there, you can buy the motors there, all quite easily, and put them all together like a massive Lego set, I suppose. And companies like Fisker, because we're going to talk about Fisker a little bit later on, aren't we? They're using this business model, and they're buying all the various components, and then they simply, I say simply as if it's easy, but they just design the shell, don't they?
Yeah. It's not IKEA for cars.
It's not.
The other way that that car companies are coming into this which is really interesting, is through being a battery manufacturer. And of course, I'm thinking about BYD. Segues me nicely into that.
Segue.
Because I do want to talk about, I think, BYD as a brand that I think for us this year, goodness me, they have just like come out of nowhere. And what a year they've had in 2023.
Incredible.
And yet you ask most mainstream consumers, they probably still don't know them now. They definitely didn't know them last year. But I wouldn't underestimate that if we fast forward sort of 7 or 8 years, they will be the way Kia and Hyundai are now. That was something that you just really know.
It may even be quicker than that,
It really could be. Did you know, for example, that they produce half of Apple's iPhones?
No, I did not know
Did
that.
you know that? They did. They have
half.
So
really?
BYD employ over 650,000 people. They're massive.
Huge. It is huge.
The other thing that's interesting that I don't know if people know is that they also build batteries for Tesla and Toyota. So they're brilliant at building electric car batteries. So as I said, they've launched this full assault here in the UK. 3 cars: the Dolphin, the Seal, and the where's my head gone? Atto 3.
Atto 3.
Atto 3, yes.
It doesn't quite fit with the animals, does it? That's the problem.
No, it doesn't.
No.
And then you have the Han that's only out in Europe, but hopefully coming to the UK pretty soon. But the Han again doesn't add into the names. Doesn't make any sense. But they're lovely cars.
I do, and I think we've all. Well, so just have a quick. What do we think of the BYDs we've driven this year?
I've found surprisingly competent, which I know sounds really quite patronising, but I got into it with very little expectations, and I think they drive pretty well. Great levels of technology on them, and they look pretty good as well, don't they?
I think the one that's really moved it on for them, and the car that when I first drove it really surprised me was the Seal.
Yeah,
I haven't driven the Seal yet.
Yeah, so we've both driven the Seal.
Yeah,
we were like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's good, isn't it?
It's very impressive. But then I was also impressed with the Dolphin because the starting price of the Dolphin is reasonably affordable.
Reasonably, yes.
So for the design and what you're getting in the Dolphin, I find that a cracking little car. And also you can get it in pink and purple. Yeah, I think it's just very you.
It's very me.
Yeah, it is very you actually.
Yes, I've got the trousers.
Of course you have.
Got the trousers, of course I have.
I think the other thing to note with them is that the stat that I've read recently that surprised me is they are now, let me just get this up, just 3,500 sales shy of matching Tesla for global sales for cars for electric cars. They are massive. So whilst we've not heard of them here in the UK, you can't underestimate them because they've got firepower behind them.
Yeah.
Globally, in China, they are selling a lot of cars, and they have got the firepower behind them to brand build. If you look, say, at Volkswagen, so VW increased its all-electric car sales year on year by 41%, but that's still just over 200,000 cars. BYD, year on year, 431,000. So
that's a crazy difference.
I am quite serious when I say that some of these legacy car makers. Anyway, so that was BYD. That was the one. That was my BYD one. Go on, what do you want to check?
Well, talking about powerhouses, there's of course Great Wall Motor, which is this other absolutely enormous company in China. They did arrive in the UK about 10 or so years ago with an absolutely dreadful pickup, but we won't talk about that. Because it was shocking, but they're back. They're back.
Don't mince your words.
I remember being on the launch. Dreadful. It was shocking. But they've brought over one of their brands, and this brand's called Ora. And you've probably heard it. Probably people at home might very well have heard it because the car they've launched in the UK with is called the Funky Cat.
Oh, it's rubbish, that isn't it? It's so rubbish. But maybe not as bad as the Lightning Cat.
Because that's so they've launched. So in contrast to BYD, who appeared this year with this flurry of products, Ora turned up and they've launched just one car, the Funky Cat. They're going to really extend themselves next year by launching another car, which is the Lightning Cat, which is sort of like a Tesla Model 3 rival, looks a bit like a Porsche Panamera.
Like a Seal rival.
A bit like a Seal, yes. So it's a sort of a saloon shape kind of car. But they've got some great ambitions. They've got dealers here already. The Funky Cat is a VW ID3 rival, so it's not cheap. So whereas the BYD Dolphin is very cheap, the Funky Cat's a little bit more premium. But I say but because there is a problem here. There's a problem here. So they've spent all year telling us about the Funky Cat, all their marketing. Hey, it's a cool, interesting name, and now they've decided to change it to, guess what? The 03. The 03.
Not the O2.
Not the O2.
Because that would be confusing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that might run into a problem with that. But
I don't mind that. I prefer it, I think.
I think it's so anonymous.
I
What do you
like
think?
Funky Cat was a really nice fit with like teenage first-time buyers that would like to go out and drive something called a fun car.
I agree.
Who can't afford an electric car that
costs
costs £32,000?
You've got a point there.
Wealthy teenage drivers.
Wealthy, rich kids that are rich from TikTok.
Okay.
Rich from TikTok.
Moving on to electric cars with weird names, brands with strange names.
Yeah, can I move on to Zika?
Yes,
not the virus,
please do.
the car. It's spelled.
They haven't thought of that,
There
have
is
they?
literally a virus called the Zika virus.
I know.
But this is Zeekr, Zika. So this is, again, this is from the Chinese Geely group, who also make the Volvo, Polestar, Lotus, etc. So they've came out with Zika. And they started in like 2021. It's pretty much brand spanking new. And they're kicking things off with the Zika X. That's apparently coming to the UK in 2025.
Underneath, it's our car of the year, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Volvo EX30,
Yes,
isn't
it shares parts
Yeah.
with the EX30 and shares part with the smart hashtag one as well. It's starting at around €44,000, so it's quite pricey. So when it comes to the UK, I guess it will be slightly less when it comes
Rich
to
TikTokers.
Yes,
Also
TikTokers again. But there we go, Zika, not the virus.
But again, a brand that needs to be built in the UK, like the next one, which has got a really good pedigree. I'm going to go for Fisker.
Oh, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a fan.
who's not a fan of a car that has dog windows?
I know.
I mean,
California road.
Well, no, yes, but the thing I was going to say was, how many years have we been talking about Fisker? And it's just like, it's never properly arrived, has it? It's finally here.
I drove it.
You drove it?
Yeah, we've got a video. It's actually on the channel now, so I drove it. I drove it
And
a
it's
couple
here
of
in
months
the
ago.
UK.
It's here.
Customers in the UK
It's here.
have it.
If you go into Westfield Shopping Centre,
They're in the car park,
London, they're
aren't
all
they?
in the car park there now.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. So if you haven't heard of Fisker, started by former design director of Aston Martin, very, very talented designer, a Danish guy called Henrik Fisker, hence the Fisker. And they've got that business model that you were talking about earlier, which is asset light. So they are literally buying in the technology, buying in the hardware, and they're not building factories, because why would you? Because they cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they're getting Manu Stern. I can never remember whether it's Magna or Manu. It's Magna Stern.
It's
isn't
Magna
it?
Steyr, isn't it?
Oh,
Something. Steyr?
my Austrian
Yeah.
accent is terrible.
Let
Apologies
us
for
know in the
that.
comments below.
It's
Yes.
Manu Stern in Austria.
Austria.
Sorry.
It's an Austrian company.
No, Austrian company. But they did build Jaguar's first car, the I-Pace. Which is
I-Pace.
a brilliant car.
Yeah.
So they're building the Ocean. Drove the Ocean. It's very impressive. I think it's a bit cost conscious inside. I think some of the
materials are really sustainable, though. They're like a lot of it is recycled stuff.
It felt a little bit bargain inside in some of the plastics, which was a bit disappointing. Yeah. But it drives really nicely. I think the really interesting thing for me about Fisker is their second car. Because for the second car, they're teaming up with Foxconn, who build iPhones. Yeah. And they're doing this little modular thing called the Pair. And I think that's what's interesting about them, is the partnerships they're making.
It's just if you want to be known for driving a Pair.
But
what car do you drive? I drive a Pair.
I'd rather drive that than a funky cat, if I'm honest.
Or a dolphin. These
I don't know.
names
Dolphin.
are
I mean, a
bonkers.
dolphin. I cannot believe a dolphin. How much is the Ocean? Is it
The Ocean's 34,000, starting at 34. I mean,
that's impressive, isn't
but the models we're getting in the UK are more into the mid 40s. So these are,
But it's the range. The range of the Ocean is really impressive.
It's an impressive package. I didn't love it quite as much as I wanted to do, but I do think it's a great package, and it looks great. It's a really nice looking car.
It's got a touch of the Evokes about it.
What I say in the video, actually in the review, is that it's, for me, the Ocean is exactly what the Evoque should have become.
Yes.
And honestly, if I was sitting at Land Rover and looking at that car, I mean, I'd be like rushing one through, because it looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So that was that one. That was mine.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about luxury. Should we talk about a little bit of luxury? So there's a car brand called Lucid. I'm sure many of you have heard of this brand. So it was founded by a Brit. He was a former chief engineer at Tesla, so he knows what he's doing. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it's already made an impact, this, because it has, well, it's won an award at the World Car Award.
It did. And that was last year. So the Air, which was their first car, which is kind of luxury saloon, sort of Tesla Model S kind of vibes. that picked up World Luxury Car at, well, it was this year's 2023 World Car Awards.
And the amazing thing about that, 'cause you think luxury, you think Mercedes, you think BMW, you don't think Lucid, do you? So what an entrance.
But can I also throw this out there, because I know we were talking about names, but Air is a lovely name.
It is a
and
lovely
also
name.
I really like Gravity.
Isn't that a great name?
Yeah.
That new car, so we've got a video of that again here on the YouTube channel. We managed to do a quick, like, real sort of smash and grab video with it at the LA Motor Show a few months ago now. It looks great. So that's a kind of real high-end luxury SUV, sort of Aston Martin DBX type vibes. I mean, the Air drives beautifully. I mean, it's engineered really well, as you would expect. The interior quality is great. Gravity, to me, I mean, literally put me behind the wheel a bit, please. But I think, you know, it's hard, it's expensive building cars. They're rumoured to have some financial challenges. Adamant, actually, when I spoke to their CEO, Peter Rawlinson, that they don't have. And also because he's Brit, originally from North Wales, he's saying they are absolutely going to launch in the UK. But they're not going to bring in small numbers of left-hand drives. They're going to wait until they can do it properly and get right-hand drive models.
And that's key.
It's key, isn't it?
So the Air and the Gravity are going to come to the UK, right-hand drive. They've already made an impact, and I think that's definitely one to watch.
That's
isn't it?
brilliant. That's brilliant. We've gone this far and we haven't even mentioned Rivian yet.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, go on. Who wants
Yes.
We need
Are
to
you
talk
going to
about-
go for that?
Well, I mean,
Or are you going to talk about Rivian?
I mean,
I'm not going to talk about Rivian.
okay, I'll talk about Rivian. Should we do Rivian? Because
Let's
it's
do
worth a
Rivian.
mention. Rivian's one of those American companies, though, again, started by an MIT graduate, super bright guy, had the most ridiculous valuation at one point.
Insane.
It was
wasn't
insane. It was valued at 100 billion. That was about a year ago. Put it a second only to Tesla, although Tesla was valued at $1 trillion at the time.
Yeah.
However, those early valuations didn't last long, so they've lost. That was sort of November 2021 was that peak. It's down by 93%, or it's been down as low as 93%.
Wow.
Yeah, they are losing. They're losing a lot of money. But they're producing really good cars. You know, I haven't driven actually Rivian yet. I don't know if either of you two have.
No.
But I've sort of been to
You've
I've
done a
seen
walk
them,
around,
done walk-arounds.
Yeah.
And they're the kind, again, I look at what Land Rovers should be doing. But again, they were coming to the UK in 2022, coming in 2023. I think they're really trying to stop hemorrhaging their losses.
that's the thing.
Because I think they've lost something like, I don't know, it's hundreds of billions of dollars just this year alone.
Yeah.
So
Don't hold your breath in 2024.
But I think there'll be an interesting rival for the Cybertruck.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering where we'd mentioned the site.
Yeah, we've got to get that in.
Well, that's the only mention we're going to do. Anyway, there is a car that one of us around this table has definitely driven, and that is the Nio. We have to talk about Nio.
Nio,
right?
Isn't it nice that I'm able to say I've driven something none of you have driven? That doesn't happen very often these days.
So if you've never heard of Nio, Nio became a massive talk about town because of the battery swap situation. So what they're doing is they've confirmed that they're going to be building 20 power swap stations. That's what they're called, aren't they? So basically, instead of charging up your battery, you drive in and you swap the battery over. That's how it's supposed to work. I don't know how it's working. They're going to have to build a lot of them to make it work, but they're giving it a go. And how was it to drive?
It was very nice to drive, very refined. It did feel like a luxury product.
Yeah.
I really liked the interior on it. But it's this battery swap tech. I mean, I think lots of other brands are talking about it. Nio have been the most vocal about it, but recently we've heard about Stellantis and various other companies. It's a great short-term solution, isn't it? Long-term, I don't think it's a great idea. And we've got a massive problem in the UK as well. We're not very quick at putting planning permissions through, building new stuff. So I was talking in depth with the UK MD. He is adamant they're going to launch late 2024. But when they do launch, he wants to have these Nio houses, which are kind of like boutique-y kind of shops. And he's going to have these battery swap places. Because he feels as though if they're going to launch a brand, they need to have the whole infrastructure there. It's a big, big task, but they're confident. They are confident.
The cars look good. You know, they do look impressive.
And they're built well, drive well. Again, it's getting that cut through. We've already spoken about a number of brands already in this video, already so far. And, It's getting that cut through there, isn't it? And they're going to struggle.
That's tricky because they're a whole different technology to how every other electric car works.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well it's going to work. But look, these new brands, they could do well. They might not do well, like what we're hearing about Ora not doing very well in the UK at the moment. So you just don't know how well these companies are going to do.
No.
But don't forget any of these that we've just thrown out on this list, because you don't know, maybe in a few years' time, you might be driving one of these. You might be driving a Zeekr or a Lucid. If you're driving a Lucid, good for you. If you can afford that.
Should we put them out of their misery now? The question.
And me as well. I don't know.
Go on.
Right,
How many do you want to have a guess? Go on.
So,
you've got...
right, what was the question again?
So the question is, how many brands currently are in China building electric cars?
Right, I'm just trying to compare that to the UK and Europe. 250.
Should we put them at Wisdom Street?
Even that's high. I mean, I'm being a bit optimistic.
High. Yeah, no, it's double that. It's 500. So
no, seriously, 500.
500 new brands.
Well,
500.
I'm going to
Can you imagine being a motoring journalist
I'm
there?
going to caveat that by saying, which I was a bit mean really, because I didn't tell you the full facts on that. So that was a couple of years ago, that figure.
Oh.
So that was like 2-3 years ago.
So was it more
was
than that?
higher?
I thought it was 500.
No, it's really interesting. It's dropped.
Ah.
Oh.
But it was for a very long time. Today, it has dropped to around 100. So I think it shows how challenging it is for these brands to actually have cut through, to actually sell cars. And it also shows how good those brands that we just talked about have to be to start to make a cut through in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah.
If you were to pick a particular brand from our list that we've mentioned today, who do you think will be?
Well, it's simple, isn't it?
I think
BYD, isn't it?
It's going to have to be BYD.
BYD every day.
Yeah.
Build your dreams.
Nice. Well, there we go. That was fabulous, wasn't it? Look, don't forget to subscribe to the Electrifying YouTube channel, because we have more informational videos like this. We've got all the reviews. We've got some funky, stupid
And we've
things
driven
in
most
as
of those
well.
cars that we've spoken about as well.
Yeah,
Anyway, so check out the channel.
Hopefully we'll all get ourselves a little Lucid or something.
The Lucid. Oh, get a Lucid. I thought it said we'll just get Lucid.
Oh, we can do that as well.
And of course, don't forget to let us know what you think of all the brands that we talked about today. And if there's any that we've forgotten, as always, we'd love to hear
there
from
might
you.
be some that we've missed.
But for now, goodbye.